Humanity was crushed, colonies burned, and hope lost. But from the ashes, ancient primordial forces awaken, granting humans unimaginable power. Fleets blazing, cities shielded, and every move unstoppable. The galaxy will witness the rise of a species once underestimated. Subscribe now to see humanity reclaim its destiny. The war had ended, but humanity lay broken. Entire star systems burned, and orbiting colonies drifted as shattered wrecks. Fleets that had once commanded respect now floated powerless among debris. The alien invaders advanced without mercy, claiming planet after planet, and humans could only watch in despair. Communication networks were destroyed, messages went unanswered, and the remaining survivors felt isolated, trapped under the weight of an enemy they could not match. On Earth, leaders gathered in hidden bunkers, their faces pale and weary. Every decision carried the weight of lives lost. Morale was shattered, and the people's hope had become fragile. Parents clutched their children in fear, while scientists and commanders tried to maintain order. Reports from survivors painted a grim picture. Entire colonies obliterated, orbital defenses annihilated, decades of struggle erased in moments. Yet whispers circulated of forgotten knowledge, hints that humanity was not entirely powerless. Ancient legends spoke of Terran ancestors who had unlocked forces greater than mere technology. They were dismissed as myths for centuries. But now, in the shadow of extinction, the stories ignited a flicker of hope. Survivors searched hidden archives, abandoned labs, and secret vaults across the planets. Each discovery reminded them that humans had endured worse, that the embers of resistance could still burn. Streets in the remaining cities were empty, smoke curling from burning ruins, scavengers searching for scraps, and families huddling in fear. There was no laughter, no songs of victory, only the low hum of emergency generators and distant echoes of destruction. Humans moved cautiously, knowing alien patrols could strike at any moment. Their once great technology now barely functional. Every small act of survival became a statement. Humanity was not yet finished. Small pockets of resistance began to form. Ragged fleets gathered in hidden starports, plotting quietly. They shared stories of courage, ships that escaped destruction, civilians who resisted capture, moments that reminded them they could still fight. These stories became lifelines, giving hope that defeat did not mean the end. The alien overlords believed humans were broken, insignificant, but the survivors carried a quiet determination, knowing that the tide could one day turn. Deep beneath Earth's surface, scientists and historians studied ancient texts, searching for knowledge that could restore humanity's strength. Forgotten energy systems, cryptic codes, and alien artifacts were examined. Each idea, no matter how improbable, was tested, desperation fueling innovation. Humanity had lost battles, but it had not lost its courage, its ingenuity, or its drive to survive. Slowly, hope grew. Defeat might be a beginning, not an end. Even as alien ships streaked across the skies and ruins lay smoldering below, humans refused to surrender. Survivors looked to one another, forging alliances from the ashes. The strongest became beacons of hope, organizing resources, guiding the frightened, planning the next steps. They knew that survival demanded unity, courage, and a willingness to learn from the past. Humanity had been mocked and underestimated, but in the aftermath of defeat, a spark of determination began to grow. Fragile but real, and in that spark lay the promise of resurgence. Humans whispered to each other in hidden shelters, sharing dreams of returning stronger, their voices carrying courage and defiance. They scavenged what remained of their technology, repaired what they could, and kept watch for alien patrols. Every small victory, every repaired system, reminded them of what they could achieve. The shadow of defeat loomed over them, but it did not define them. Humanity's story was not finished, and somewhere deep inside, the survivors knew that this was only the first step toward rising again. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a vault untouched for millennia, a team of scientists and archaeologists worked tirelessly. Their lamps flickered against ancient walls covered in symbols no one fully understood. Dust floated in the air as if guarding secrets long forgotten. At the center of the vault lay the Primordial Codex, an artifact older than recorded history, bound in a material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Its pages hummed faintly with energy, and the scientists felt a strange resonance as they approached, as though the Codex recognized their presence. The team carefully opened the Codex, revealing symbols and diagrams that defied conventional logic. The manuscript described forces that humanity had only imagined in myths, powerful energies tied to human DNA. The text seemed alive, shifting slightly under their gaze, revealing new information with every careful study. At first, the researchers were skeptical, whispering doubts about whether it was a hoax or alien trickery. Yet, deep down, a sense of awe and fear spread through the room, as though they were on the verge of discovering something that could change everything. Word of the Codex spread slowly through the remaining human settlements, carried by messengers who risked alien patrols to deliver the news. Leaders argued over its significance, debating whether the potential gain outweighed the obvious dangers. Some feared that awakening forces so ancient could destroy humanity instead of saving it. Others believed it was the last hope, a way to reclaim their place in the galaxy. Desperation pushed them forward, and a small coalition of scientists, soldiers, and philosophers began the painstaking work of decoding the Codex. The process was grueling, requiring intense mental focus and precise alignment of complex energy devices. Ancient symbols had to be translated, resonant frequencies calculated, and rare crystals arranged in patterns described in the manuscript. Every step carried risk, and one wrong adjustment could lead to catastrophic consequences. Yet the team persisted, driven by the knowledge that failure meant extinction. Each day brought small breakthroughs, and the Codex seemed to respond, glowing softly as if acknowledging human progress. Outside the vault, the remnants of human civilization watched anxiously, their hope now pinned on the fragile efforts of a few. The Codex represented more than knowledge. It was a lifeline, a promise that humanity might rise again. Scientists began connecting the Codex to experimental devices, channeling energy through intricate circuits. A low hum grew in the vault, vibrating through the floors and walls, felt even by those who waited above ground. It was subtle at first, but gradually the hum became stronger, a sign that something ancient was stirring. The Codex described entities called the Primordial Forces, beings of immense power that had once interacted with humanity's ancestors. Their influence had shaped the evolution of human intelligence and resilience, but the knowledge had been lost over millennia. Now, the forces were being awakened, their energy slowly bridging the gap between myth and reality. Researchers observed changes in themselves, a heightened awareness, sharper instincts, and a connection to something larger than themselves. It was exhilarating, terrifying, and utterly incomprehensible at the same time. Military advisors remained cautious, stationing forces around the vault to prevent any accidental exposure or enemy interference. They could not fully grasp the Codex's power, but they knew the aliens would strike if they sensed the activation. Communication networks were partially restored to coordinate the experiment, and humans from distant colonies watched through secure channels, their eyes wide with hope and fear, waiting to see if this ancient knowledge would be humanity's salvation or its doom. After months of preparation, the final sequence was initiated, aligning energy crystals with orbital amplifiers as described in the Codex. A pulse of energy shot through the vault, resonating across the planet. Lights flickered, and the hum grew into a deep, vibrating tone that seemed to echo in the bones of every human being. Scientists, soldiers, and civilians alike felt a connection to something immense, as if the universe itself had taken notice. The Primordial Codex, once silent and mysterious, had begun to awaken the forces that humanity had long forgotten, promising a new path forward. The world held its breath as the first signs of the primordial forces appeared, shimmering auroras in the upper atmosphere, subtle distortions in gravity, and energy fields that bent light in impossible ways. Humanity, for the first time in decades, felt the fragile thrill of hope. The Codex had not just offered knowledge, it had offered a chance, a possibility that the species once considered weak and defeated could now wield power beyond imagination. And in that moment, the survivors realized that the battle for their future had only just begun, with the primordial forces now stirring to life. Using the Primordial Codex, humanity began the process of awakening the ancient forces. Scientists, soldiers, and engineers worked together, carefully following the intricate instructions that had lain hidden for millennia. Energy crystals were arranged in precise formations, circuits connected to orbital amplifiers, and every measurement had to be exact. Even the slightest error could cause catastrophic failure. Yet desperation and determination pushed the humans forward. The air in the vault vibrated with anticipation, as if the planet itself sensed the coming change. At first, nothing happened. The hum of the crystals and amplifiers was steady but unremarkable. Doubts crept into the minds of the team, whispers of fear and worry. Many questioned whether they had misread the codex, whether the legends of the primordial forces were mere myths. Yet they did not give up, each team member continuing their work with focused determination. They knew humanity's survival depended on this moment, and failure was not an option. Then, subtle signs began to appear, small distortions in the air, flickers of light that seemed to pulse with a rhythm. It started as barely noticeable, but the changes grew steadily, spreading through the vault and into the skies above. A low resonance echoed through every human presence on the planet, felt not just by their ears, but in their bones and hearts. It was a vibration of life and energy, ancient and powerful, and it carried the weight of forces long dormant. Outside the vault, the skies began to shimmer with colors unseen before. Auroras spread across continents, pulsating in response to the energy unleashed from deep within Earth. These displays were not merely visual phenomena. They affected gravity, magnetic fields, and even the perception of time for those nearby. People who had feared the end of humanity now felt a strange connection to the planet, to each other, and to something far greater than themselves. Across distant colonies, sensors recorded fluctuations in energy that defied scientific explanation, and humanity began to realize the primordial forces were awakening. The Codex had described how these forces were linked to human DNA, that every person carried a trace of the ancient energy. Now, as the awakening proceeded, humans began to experience subtle changes. Senses sharpened, reflexes improved, and thoughts flowed with clarity previously unimaginable. It was as though their minds and bodies were being attuned to the rhythm of the universe. Some scientists reported feeling visions of past civilizations, hints of knowledge that had shaped human history. While the physical transformations were still minor, the psychological and spiritual impact was profound. The military monitored these developments with awe and caution. The changes were unpredictable and powerful, but the humans realized that their species was beginning to reclaim a legacy that had been dormant for centuries. Even ordinary citizens felt the energy ripple through them, strengthening resolve and courage, giving a sense of unity and purpose. In the vault, the team felt a surge of collective awareness, a bond that transcended individual thought. Every human presence resonating with the primordial forces. Each pulse of energy reinforced the connection, confirming that the Codex had indeed been a guide to awakening something extraordinary. As days passed, the energy continued to intensify, becoming visible as streams of light weaving through the atmosphere. Resonances in the ground caused subtle tremors, reminding humans that the forces they had awakened were alive and immense. Cities and colonies became nodes in the network of energy, amplifying the effects and spreading awareness to every corner of the inhabited worlds. The primordial forces were no longer distant legends. They were active, interacting with humans directly, teaching them, guiding them, and lending power beyond ordinary understanding. Every human involved realized that the awakening was only the beginning. The Codex had unlocked potential, but mastery would require discipline, courage, and wisdom. As the forces grew stronger, humans could feel the pressure of responsibility, that this power could save them or destroy them if mishandled. Yet hope surged across the surviving colonies. For the first time in decades, people could believe that humanity might rise again, not as a weak species, but as a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. Finally, the day came when the first full manifestation of the primordial forces was visible. A shimmering dome of energy enveloped the vault, extending into the skies, resonating with human life. Every individual felt the pulse, a tangible reminder that they were no longer powerless. They had awakened forces that had shaped their ancestors, and now humanity stood on the edge of a new era, ready to harness this power to face the alien threat and to reclaim their place among the stars. The alien overlords noticed the shift immediately, their vast fleets in orbit detecting disturbances unlike anything they had seen before. Instruments that had tracked human activity for decades now registered anomalies in energy, gravity, and light. The commanders of the alien armada were confused and alarmed, for humanity had never exhibited such power. They had always been weak, predictable, and easy to suppress. And now, something fundamental had changed. Panic spread quickly through the alien ranks. Sensors flickered, and warships shifted course as they struggled to adapt to forces beyond their understanding. Communications between vessels became erratic, and alien pilots reported strange phenomena interfering with navigation. Entire squadrons found themselves unable to maintain formation, as invisible currents of energy tugged at their ships. The aliens realized they were facing an enemy that could no longer be measured by conventional tactics. The Council of Command gathered on the flagship, debating whether to strike immediately or withdraw to assess the threat. Some argued for caution, insisting that they could not afford to underestimate humans again. Others demanded a swift assault, convinced that hesitation would allow humanity to gain full control over the strange forces. Arguments became heated, as the once unquestioned superiority of the alien forces was now in doubt. Meanwhile, on human-controlled planets, people watched the skies with awe and fear. The auroras and energy pulses visible from orbit were unlike anything they had ever seen. Even those far from the activation sites felt the effects of the primordial forces. A subtle vibration in the ground, a tingling in the air. It was as if the planet itself was awakening alongside them. Humans began to sense the presence of something immense, something that could protect them or destroy them. The aliens attempted reconnaissance, sending smaller scout ships to gather information. But the results were catastrophic. Energy distortions scrambled sensors, and several scout vessels were destroyed without explanation. Pilots reported seeing shapes and movements in the skies that defied logic. Colossal forms of energy that could not be targeted by conventional weapons. Fear spread among the alien crews, a fear they had never known, as the humans' awakening made them realize that the species they had written off as weak was no longer powerless. On Earth, the coalition of scientists, soldiers, and engineers continued their work, aware that the aliens were observing every change. The Codex had prepared them for this moment, and the team adjusted their rituals to enhance the connection between humans and the primordial forces. Each day, the energy pulses grew stronger, spreading across continents and reaching into space. The humans now controlled phenomena that the aliens could not comprehend, bending light, shifting gravity, and affecting energy fields on a planetary scale. Communication between the human factions improved, using the resonance of the primordial forces as a network beyond conventional technology. Orders, warnings, and discoveries were shared instantaneously through energy pulses, and coordination became seamless. The aliens watched helplessly as humans adapted and evolved faster than any strategy could predict. Their fear deepened when entire alien squadrons were destroyed by unseen forces, their weapons rendered useless by the energy humans now commanded. The psychological impact on the aliens was profound. Their arrogance had been shattered, and they could no longer assume that humans were insignificant. Every ship that faltered, every pilot that panicked, spread fear through the ranks. The alien forces, once supremely confident, now realized that the humans' awakening was an event they could not control. They faced an opponent whose potential far exceeded their understanding, and doubt crept into even the most disciplined minds. Humans, in contrast, felt a mixture of exhilaration and caution. They had awoken forces that were ancient and immensely powerful, yet the responsibility of wielding such energy weighed heavily. The alien threat was still present. And though the humans had newfound strength, they knew that reckless use of the primordial forces could be catastrophic. Training and coordination became priorities, as they learned to harness the energy carefully, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. The skies over human territories glowed with auroras and streams of energy, a visible warning to any alien who dared approach. Humanity had transformed, no longer the weak species once underestimated. The aliens understood that every movement they made would be countered by powers they could not predict. Fear became the guiding emotion of the alien command. And for the first time in centuries, they realized that humanity might be a threat capable of rewriting the balance of the galaxy. By the end of the first week of the awakening, humans had solidified their control over the primordial forces. The aliens were forced to retreat temporarily to reassess. their pride wounded, their arrogance shattered, and their confidence replaced by a cautious dread. Humanity had signaled to the galaxy that they were no longer prey, and that the awakening of ancient power had begun to change the course of the war forever. As the primordial forces continued to awaken, humans began to feel their connection to energies far beyond ordinary understanding. Ordinary soldiers found that they could manipulate energy fields around them, creating shields, blasts, and waves of force that could destroy alien drones and disrupt enemy weaponry. Engineers discovered ways to channel the forces through existing technology, amplifying weapons and communications beyond their previous limits. Entire fleets of ragged human ships, once vulnerable, became extensions of the energy itself, able to maneuver with uncanny precision and strike with overwhelming power. The first demonstration occurred in orbit above a devastated colony, where a small human fleet confronted an approaching alien detachment. Ships that had previously been outgunned now moved in perfect harmony with the energy pulses, firing sequences synchronized with the rhythm of the primordial forces. They bent light around themselves to evade attacks, accelerated with bursts that defied conventional physics, and projected concentrated energy waves that disintegrated enemy ships in seconds. The alien commanders watched in disbelief as their superior numbers counted for nothing against humans wielding power beyond imagination. On the ground, humans learned to harness the forces in ways that affected entire cities. Energy fields could protect structures from bombardment, control gravity in small zones to repel enemy troops, or even amplify human strength and reflexes. Civilians trained under guidance of soldiers and scientists, developing control over these energies. The lines between ordinary people and warriors blurred, as anyone could become a force capable of defending themselves and others. The planet itself seemed to respond to the awakening, resonating with energy that humans could now direct consciously. Psychologists and researchers observed astonishing effects. As humans linked more deeply to the primordial forces, their minds expanded in perception and coordination. Strategic planning became intuitive, soldiers instinctively anticipating enemy movements, and leaders making decisions with clarity and speed impossible before. Even the weakest individuals felt their confidence and courage amplified. Morale soaring across every remaining settlement. The aliens, monitoring these developments, grew increasingly desperate, unable to predict human responses or counter the extraordinary adaptations. The primordial forces did not act alone, however. They demanded understanding, discipline, and responsibility. Early experiments revealed that careless use of energy could be dangerous, causing unintended destruction or backlash. Scientists emphasized control, training humans to focus, to sense the flow of energy and direct it precisely. Military units practiced coordination, combining traditional tactics with the enhanced powers. Learning to fight alongside the primordial forces turned humanity from a fractured, desperate species into a unified, formidable force. In one dramatic battle above a vital orbital station, humans demonstrated their new capabilities fully. Entire alien squadrons were obliterated without a single human ship destroyed. Energy shields absorbed incoming fire. Counterattacks projected focused blasts that disintegrated enemy formations. And navigation fields allowed human pilots to move unpredictably, outmaneuvering the aliens entirely. Commanders realized that no traditional fleet could withstand this level of mastery, and panic spread through the alien ranks, lowering morale and creating chaos. News of these victories spread rapidly among human survivors, inspiring hope and determination. Even those who had never witnessed the battles firsthand felt empowered. Training and preparation increased across the remaining colonies, as civilians and soldiers alike sought to connect with the primordial forces. The Codex became a central guide, teaching the principles, rituals, and techniques necessary to wield the energy safely. Everyone understood that the forces were not just tools, but living energy, requiring respect and discipline. Humanity's perception of themselves changed dramatically. Once considered weak and inferior, they now understood that they were capable of extraordinary feats. Strength, courage, and intelligence combined with the primordial forces created a synergy no alien technology could match. Even the smallest human could now turn the tide of battle with focus and precision. Communities coordinated through the energy network, sharing knowledge and reinforcing defenses instantaneously, turning cities into living fortresses. The alien commanders, witnessing repeated defeats, began to reconsider the war. Their arrogance shattered. They realized that humanity's rise was unstoppable if the primordial forces continued to grow in power and mastery. Panic spread through fleets as they saw humans wielding phenomena that could control matter, energy, and movement on scales previously thought impossible. Fear replaced strategy, and hesitation cost them dearly. By the end of the first full month of awakening, humanity had transformed entirely. Ragged survivors had become warriors of energy, coordinated and precise. Every action amplified by the primordial forces. Every city, ship, and soldier part of a larger living system of power. The battle had shifted decisively, and for the first time, humans truly understood that they were no longer prey in the galaxy, but a species capable of unmatched power and determination. The aliens launched their final offensive with full force, massive warships moving in coordinated waves to crush humanity once and for all. Their weapons fired relentlessly, turning planet surfaces into molten scars, and orbital stations were obliterated in seconds. But humanity, now fully synchronized with the primordial forces, met the attack with a power that dwarfed anything the invaders had seen. Ships moved as if alive, energy shields bending light and projectiles around them, and concentrated blasts tore through alien formations with precision. Entire fleets of humans became extensions of the primordial forces, coordinated in ways that no alien strategy could predict. Even small ships wielded power that could destroy massive dreadnoughts. Their movements were fluid, almost organic, guided by intuition and the pulse of energy that linked every human and every machine. As aliens tried to concentrate their fire, the energy shields absorbed and redirected it, turning their own weapons against them. Panic spread among the enemy ranks as destruction multiplied faster than they could respond. Above devastated planets, auroras of energy stretched across the skies, bending gravity and time around critical battle zones. Human soldiers moved with heightened perception, dodging attacks and striking with devastating efficiency. Every human action amplified by the primordial forces, they seemed unstoppable. Entire cities acted as nodes of energy, channeling power to nearby fleets and ground units, making every engagement a nightmare for the alien invaders. The battlefield had become a living network, a web of energy connecting humans across continents and orbital space. Alien commanders tried to regroup, sending reinforcements and specialized strike teams. But human mastery of the forces made coordination impossible. Fleets were disoriented, weapons misfired, and the enemy could not anticipate human strategies. Humans adapted in real time, sensing alien movements and reacting instantly. Energy waves dismantled ships before they could reach attack positions, and defensive grids made it impossible for the aliens to sustain prolonged offensives. Every advance by the invaders was met with overwhelming, precise counterattacks. On the ground, the situation mirrored the orbital battles. Cities defended by human forces had become fortresses of energy. Gravity fields repelled enemy troops. Energy shields blocked artillery, and soldiers augmented by the primordial forces moved with superhuman agility. Even civilians participated, directing energy flows to protect their homes and reinforce strategic positions. Humanity had transformed into a species capable of coordinated, planet-scale defense. Their collective power making every step forward for the aliens deadly and uncertain. In one pivotal engagement above a major colony, the alien fleet concentrated their most powerful weapons, attempting to obliterate the human forces in a single strike. But the humans, linked through the energy network, anticipated the attack, redistributing energy across shields and counterblasts. Alien warships vaporized under coordinated waves of force, while human ships moved as if anticipating every move. The primordial forces amplified every action, turning even the smallest human fighter into a potential weapon of massive destruction. The psychological impact on the aliens was devastating. Fear spread through the ranks as they realized that human power was no longer limited. Their strategies, built on centuries of experience against weaker species, were failing completely. Morale collapsed as dreadnought after dreadnought fell, and commanders became paralyzed by the unpredictability and overwhelming power of humans harnessing the primordial forces. Every loss amplified the humans' momentum, creating a cascading effect that no alien technology could stop. Human leaders coordinated the battle through the energy network, their decisions guided by instinct, strategy, and the flow of the primordial forces. Fleets, cities, and soldiers moved in perfect harmony, every energy pulse calculated to maximize efficiency and destruction of alien forces. Even the civilians' efforts contributed, as their awareness and control over energy created additional layers of defense and offense. Humanity had transformed into an unstoppable force, unified and infinitely adaptable. By the end of the battle, entire alien formations had been annihilated. Planets that had been on the brink of occupation were safe, and orbital stations, once shattered, had been defended successfully. The tide of the war had shifted completely, demonstrating the full potential of the primordial forces in human hands. Humans had become masters of energy, perception, and strategy, capable of feats that no alien could have imagined. Their victory was not just tactical but symbolic, proving that a species once underestimated could rise to unimaginable power. Even as the smoke and energy storms settled, humans understood that the battle was only the beginning. The aliens had been defeated decisively, but the responsibility of wielding such immense power remained. Training, discipline, and vigilance would be required to maintain control. Humanity had shown that it was capable of triumphing against impossible odds, and now, with the primordial forces fully awakened, they were ready to defend their place in the galaxy and reclaim their destiny. Harnessing the primordial forces came at a cost. The energy was immense and ancient, far beyond anything humans had ever experienced. Some individuals struggled to contain it, their bodies and minds pushed to the limits. A few were consumed entirely, transformed into beings of pure energy, no longer recognizable as human. Others suffered injuries, temporary or permanent, as the forces they commanded reacted unpredictably. The scientists and leaders understood that power without discipline could destroy them faster than any alien fleet ever could. Even those who survived intact felt profound changes. Their senses sharpened, reflexes heightened, and awareness expanded. But with these gifts came responsibility. Every decision carried weight. Every action affected not just themselves, but the people, cities, and fleets connected through the primordial forces. Leaders made agonizing choices, balancing immediate tactical advantage against the risk of overloading or losing control of the energy. Mistakes could cause entire systems to collapse, turning victory into disaster in moments. Humanity's society transformed as well. Civilians and soldiers alike became part of a network of energy and consciousness. Each person linked to the forces contributed to a collective understanding and strategic coordination. Even minor tasks, such as resource distribution or repairs, were enhanced through subtle energy manipulation. Communities became living systems, every action amplified, every individual's courage and intelligence magnified by the primordial forces, making the human species as a whole more than the sum of its parts. At the same time, the cost of using the forces reminded humans of their limits. Energy fields could destabilize cities, gravitational manipulations could collapse structures unintentionally, and prolonged exposure caused fatigue and mental strain. The scientists documented every effect, teaching protocols to minimize harm, and leaders implemented strict control measures to ensure that the primordial forces were used wisely. Even as humans celebrated victories, they remained acutely aware that the powers they now commanded were not toys, but ancient energies demanding respect and precision. Some humans began to change irreversibly, their bodies and minds adapting to the energy on levels that blurred the line between biology and force. They could perceive threats before they occurred, move with impossible speed, and manipulate energy to create effects that seemed magical to ordinary observers. The Codex had warned of these transformations, but nothing could fully prepare the humans for the experience. Some feared losing their humanity entirely, while others embraced the evolution as a necessary step for survival. Amid these transformations, alliances and hierarchies shifted. New leaders emerged naturally, individuals whose ability to master the energy surpassed others. Decisions once made through debate or command now flowed instinctively through the network, humanity acting as one organism in many ways. Even minor units, when properly connected to the primordial forces, could perform complex operations autonomously. The balance of power within humanity changed, but the focus remained on survival, strategy, and the responsible use of energy. The aliens, observing from the remnants of their fleets, could not comprehend the scope of these changes. They had defeated humans before, but now they faced beings who were evolving in real time, adapting faster than any conventional response could match. Their panic and fear increased as humans became unpredictable and overwhelmingly powerful. Every battle demonstrated that the cost of using the primordial forces was high, yet the reward, mastery over life, energy, and even space, was immeasurable. In one particularly tense operation, humans coordinated a multi-planet defensive and offensive maneuver, manipulating energy fields across vast distances. Some participants were pushed to their physical and mental limits, nearly lost to the forces they wielded. Yet the success of the operation proved the potential of disciplined cooperation, the ability of humans to endure and thrive under pressure. Humans realized that sacrifice and responsibility were inseparable from the power they now commanded, and that their continued survival depended on careful mastery. As the immediate alien threat receded, humans reflected on the cost of awakening the primordial forces. Communities mourned those who had been lost or transformed, while celebrating the survival and growth of those who remained. The knowledge gained through struggle created a deeper respect for the forces themselves, instilling discipline and wisdom alongside raw power. Humanity had changed forever, aware that victory was possible, but only if they balanced courage, intelligence, and caution in every action. By the end of the initial period of transformation, humans were no longer the same species that had faced near annihilation. They were stronger, wiser, and intimately connected to the primordial forces, capable of feats that no alien or conventional weapon could challenge. The battle for survival had been won, but the ongoing responsibility of wielding such ancient, powerful energy would shape every decision, every strategy, and every life in the new era that humanity had entered. The cost had been high, but the future was finally in their hands. With the primordial forces fully awakened, humanity stood poised to reclaim the galaxy. The aliens, once confident and unchallenged, now faced a species transformed beyond recognition. Entire fleets had been shattered, orbital stations protected by energy fields, and planets that had teetered on the edge of occupation were now fortified by living networks of power. Humans had become masters of the forces their ancestors had only whispered about, and the balance of the war had shifted decisively. The final confrontation began when the largest alien armada approached the human core systems, expecting a final easy victory. Instead, they were met with coordinated energy barriers, unpredictable maneuvers, and concentrated blasts that defied every calculation. Human fleets moved as extensions of the primordial forces, linking ships, cities, and even planetary systems into a network of defense and offense. Every weapon, every movement, every strategy was amplified by the forces, rendering alien superiority meaningless. As battle erupted across space, humans discovered that the primordial forces could anticipate and counter enemy tactics. Energy pulses disrupted alien shields before weapons could fire, and gravitational distortions rerouted fleets away from critical targets. Pilots and soldiers felt a heightened awareness, reacting almost instinctively to threats and opportunities. The aliens realized that their technological advantage no longer mattered. Their experience and numbers rendered useless against humans wielding power that seemed to bend reality itself. On multiple fronts, humans executed daring maneuvers that had been impossible before. Orbital bombardments were neutralized by energy shields, and counterattacks obliterated enemy formations. Cities on threatened planets became nodes of energy, projecting force fields and amplifying attacks. Civilians coordinated with soldiers through the energy network, their contributions turning every population center into a living fortress. Humanity had become a species that fought as one, each individual part of a greater, unstoppable whole. The aliens attempted desperate strategies, sending superweapons and elite squadrons, but each move was anticipated and countered. The primordial forces acted like a living intelligence, guiding humans with precision, turning alien strength into weakness and panic. Motherships were disabled before they could fire. Dreadnoughts disintegrated under concentrated energy waves, and entire formations scattered under gravitational distortions. Every defeat further demoralized the aliens, eroding their confidence and coherence. Even those humans who had not been on the front lines felt the impact. Energy surges connected distant colonies, relaying information, warnings, and reinforcements instantly. The Codex had enabled them to create a planetary and interstellar network of coordination that no alien technology could disrupt. Ordinary citizens contributed to defense and offense, manipulating energy flows, repairing systems instantly, and supporting fleets and soldiers in real time. Humanity's collective effort amplified the primordial forces, turning the war into a battle of living energy against conventional weapons. In the climax of the confrontation, humans unleashed a coordinated strike that decimated the alien command fleet. Energy pulses synchronized across multiple systems, bending light and gravity, disabling weapons and ships simultaneously. Alien leaders watched helplessly as their forces crumbled, realizing that their arrogance and underestimation of humans had led to total defeat. The survivors among the aliens fled in disarray, their fleets scattered, morale shattered, and their empire left in chaos. The victory was complete, yet humans did not celebrate recklessly. They understood that with great power came responsibility. The primordial forces had saved them, but mastery required ongoing discipline and control. Training, coordination, and respect for the energy became central to human society. Humanity had survived extinction, defeated a superior enemy, and awakened an ancient power that ensured their dominance in the galaxy. Across the colonies and planets, humans observed the aftermath. Their cities repaired and strengthened, fleets reorganized, and networks of energy stabilized. Survivors honored those lost and transformed during the awakening, understanding that sacrifice had paved the way for triumph. Humanity had proven that weakness was an illusion, that courage, intelligence, and unity could overcome any obstacle. Finally, as the primordial forces pulsed gently across planets and stars, humans felt a deep connection to their past, their ancestors, and the universe itself. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity was no longer prey, no longer underestimated, and no longer weak. They had awakened, mastered ancient forces, and reclaimed their place among the stars. The story of survival, power, and awakening had reached its turning point, marking the beginning of a new era where humanity stood invincible, vigilant, and ready to defend their destiny.